Today's episode has been brought to you by
Schedulicity.
Welcome to episode 65 of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. Today, I want to talk about a struggle that all of us as yoga teachers and entrepreneurs face, creating an ideal schedule. I'm not here to tell you that I have all of the answers. I've learned a lot, and I have a few tips and tricks that have really helped me so that every month I feel like I get a little closer to my ideal schedule. It might be something that is out of reach and all the time, but I get there a little bit more. Today's episode will work a bit like a mini training, so you might want to replay it with paper and pen handy. Not to worry though, you don't have to take notes. All of the links and notes are ready there for you at theconnectedyogateacher.com/65. The inspiration for this episode came from the many consultation calls and email questions from yoga teachers that I work with and hear from, and from everyone who has said to me, "How do you do all of this, Shannon?" If you are brand new to this podcast, let me introduce myself. My name is Shannon Crow. I've been a yoga teacher since 2006. I now teach on Tuesdays only, one-on-one classes at a physiotherapy office in Owen Sound, and then I teach a group evening class 11-week session on Tuesdays, 2 or 3 times a year. I used to teach 11 to 16 classes a week all over the place, and I made less money, I traveled a lot more, and I got burnt out doing that. And now I make more money, I travel around, drive around less, and I really enjoy what I'm doing. I feel like I really found my niche. I'm also a mother of 3. My kids are all teenagers now. Yep, that is a lot of fun. I have 2 boys and a girl, Wyatt, Colton, and Sage. They are amazing beings, and I feel really blessed to be their mom most days. Being a parent, though, is not an easy gig. For those of you who know what I'm going through, I just heard from a fellow mother today, and we chatted really quickly because we didn't have a lot of time about how mom guilt is sometimes it feels like it's endless. So if you are parenting and doing all the things that you do, I want to first give a huge cheerleader session over here. Give yourself a pat on the back, take a little breather. Remember that you're probably doing a full-time job as a parent on top of the other things that you're doing. On top of those roles, I'm a consultant for yoga teachers. I help yoga teachers to really focus in on what will create a sustainable, profitable, and enjoyable business for them. I lead 2 teacher trainings. One is prenatal and the other is yoga for pelvic health. I also host this podcast, obviously. I wanted to create a place for yoga teachers so that we as a collective can feel supported and connected every week to information, ideas, and a community of other yoga teachers and entrepreneurs who get what we're going through and can help us along the way. This is a place where you can tune in and listen between the classes, workshops, and trainings that you are teaching or attending. So yes, my calendar is really full. Most importantly though, I'm molding it and it's evolving and it's changing over time to suit my 4 main areas of importance in my life. My health and well-being is 1. My relationships with my partner Sean, my children, my friends, my family, and my community is number 2. My business is number 3, and my financial health is number 4. Those are my 4 areas of importance, and I'll get into more of that when we get to the big picture plan of today's episode. All of the show notes again and links are at theconnectedyogateacher.com/65. Thank you so much to our team, Laura, who writes our show notes, Samantha, our VA, Rob, our audio editor, and our sponsor, Schedulicity. Let's hear from Schedulicity right now.
Hey Connected Yoga teachers, this is Shannon with the Schedulicity Hot Tip of the Week. Schedulicity lets you easily visualize your plans and make changes that you don't have to write down or try to remember. Your students can always check your available classes anytime and stay up to date with changes you make. If you change a class that students have already enrolled in, Schedulicity will automatically offer to send them an alert. If you're experimenting with finding the most popular attendance times in your area, it's easy to look back and examine the success of your past classes. When your students realize they can trust you to keep them connected online in this way, they'll never be shocked if your ideal schedule happens to change. After all, flexibility is key.
Thank you so much, Schedulicity. Alrighty, let's dive into today's episode. My plan is to include all kinds of general tips and tricks around scheduling. If you feel like you want a deeper dive and you want this to be more personal, I would encourage you to set up a one-on-one consultation call with me and we can look at your specific calendar and goals as a yoga entrepreneur. But there's going to be lots here for you today, so you can start here. I don't want you to feel like you have to do everything I list out here. Choose one that would have the biggest impact or would be easy to implement today. Integrate that one, try it on, see how it fits you, throw it out if it doesn't work, change it if it's working but it needs to be tweaked a little bit. And when you have that one down, return to this episode and maybe add another one. So let's first start with work time versus time off. More importantly, let's start with time away from work. When are you working and when are you taking time off? Ideally, if finances are not part of this equation, when would you work and when would you have time off? When do you fit in your self-care, your yoga practice, meditation, a lunch break, strength training, sitting and looking out the window with a tea, reading a book that isn't about yoga or business, walking, gardening, time out with friends, like whatever is your this fills me up and it's not work related. So if we look at daily, when does your workday start? When do you have breaks? And when does your day end? Personally, I just have to share that I'm really good at the start time. I'm really excited to dive in and start my workday. And sometimes I fit a walk in before. I have Sean to thank for that. He's usually like, do you want to walk to work today? Because we both work from home most of the time. And that's just a really nice way to start the day together. But I'm not so good at lunch break. I kind of grab snacks where I can. And I have been known to book myself through lunch break. So that's something I'm working on. And I'm also not so great with the time at the end of the day. So I think a big part of that also I need to explain is that my goal is to finish my workday at 2 or 3 o'clock. So my goal is to start around 9 or 9:30 and finish at 2 or 3. I talk to some friends who get really annoyed with me at this point where they say that's not a workday, Shannon. Like a workday is 9 to 5. Well, I'm self-employed. I work a lot and sometimes I work at night or on weekends and I'm working towards an ideal work schedule. So if you just got angry there and you felt like a workday goes until 5 o'clock, guess what? If you are a yoga teacher entrepreneur, you can probably set a 9 to 5. Okay, so let's look at that daily ideal work time and time off. So we just jot down here is when I'm working and here is when I'm off on the average ideal day. And we might not be there yet, but let's at least define what that looks like. Then we'll move to the ideal week. So what does that look like for you? Do you want to work Monday to Friday or would you rather work, let's say Wednesday to Sunday? I don't know. You get to make this part up. So for myself, I typically like to work Monday to Friday. I feel like my kids are around more on the weekend. There's more to do and it's more socially acceptable as well. Do like to take the odd Friday afternoon off if I can, or sometimes the full day on Friday. So what does your ideal work week look like? Then we move over into the ideal month. So do you work every week in the month or would you like to have 1 week off a month or a little extra holiday in that month? Start to look at the calendar and think, where would I put my holidays, my time off in an ideal month? And then what about the big picture of a year? So this one I feel like is a little easier when we're used to that 9 to 5 mentality. We usually have an allotted number of holidays. Sometimes though, when we're self-employed, we forget to add this in. I'm really excited this year because I'm already doing my planning for podcasts and podcast interviews so that my whole team can get some summer holiday time. So we're dealing with 4 people there who need to get that summer time off: Samantha, Laura, Rob, and myself. And it's all different. We can kind of work ahead and work towards that so that we have different time off in the summer to enjoy that. So what about you? Would you like to work 12 months of the year or would you rather work 6? If you come into the mindset, well, yeah, I'd rather work 2. I mean, would you? Ideally, I know myself, I love the work that I do and I'm excited to come back when I have a break from it. So I wouldn't ideally work only 2 months of the year, but check in with yourself. We're not all the same and that's really amazing. Okay, so let's talk about your appointments with yourself. These are really the fuel for your business. I have to admit, full disclosure here, this is one of my biggest challenges right now. When the kids need something last minute, laundry is a thing here in our house, like first thing in the morning. For some reason, we run out of clothes then, or later on at night, or maybe they need help with homework. And I can't just blame my kids. It's also things like I open my email and I see something and I think, oh, I need to get to that right now. Or, oh, it will only take me 5 minutes to do that. And that can creep into the time of the appointments with myself. So just take a look at what you're scheduling for yourself. When you're scheduling that time off, are you sticking to it? And if you need to move it around, say if an emergency comes up, a work emergency, an emergency with a friend, are you moving that appointment with yourself to somewhere else on your calendar? So often we would keep an appointment with, say, a client or a yoga student that we're working with, and we would not just not show up for that, but we're not always doing the same thing for ourselves. Okay, so we've started to get into, appointments with self are really crucial. And when would I like to be working and when would I like to be off work? So we don't even have to define what that is. That work could be a few different things. It might be one thing. Time off away from work could be a variety of things. But we just get down to, in the ideal day, the ideal week, the ideal month, the ideal year, when am I working, when am I not? Sometimes it can help to have a calendar right in front of us to really plan that out, map that out, draw this out in whatever way, write it out. I would just sit down and say, here I am now, that's fine. We keep that in mind where we are right now. But where are we headed? If we're working 40 hours at a 9 to 5 for someone else, but we really want to increase our time as a independent contractor yoga teacher, let's write out what that ideally looks like so we have that plan in place. The next thing to look at is the best time of day for you to teach. So this is something that I struggled with for a very long time as a new teacher. And sometimes as a new teacher, you just have to jump in and say, yeah, I'm going to take that Saturday morning 6 a.m. class because I need the experience. But as you progress, and I want you to think of yourself when we do this work, when we're doing ideally, this is our goal, this is our plan over time. Do you really want to teach that Saturday morning class? Or is that time that is best spent with your family? Are you thinking that you have to choose the best time for your students or the most popular times for the studio? So I once was teaching Monday 9:30 a.m. class because I'm really on. Monday at 9:30, I like to get to the studio a half an hour early to set up and be ready and to do a little meditation there by myself and to welcome people as they come in. So Monday at 9, I feel like my work week really used to start then in the studio, and I loved it. Now, I was thinking, well, everyone else's work day is starting, so I'm not going to have many students. And that is the opposite of what happened. I remember standing in front of a very packed class one morning. There was like 12 or 15 people there thinking, do these people not have jobs? But they were putting themselves first. A lot of them were self-employed, and they were really excited to get their kids off to school and land in the class for 9:30. So I thought I was going to have a more retired student base, and that is not what I had. So what is your ideal yoga class time? I think that's really key to get into that. A lot of the time we're also teaching in the evening. Do you want to be teaching in the evening? Do you have little kids and they need you at bedtime? And so many teachers that I work with will say, well, students want that evening class. Great. There are lots of teachers that can teach that time. How can you niche down, provide something really special, maybe be doing one-on-one work with people during the day? That's when you book an appointment, usually with your massage therapist, your physiotherapist, your doctor, even your hairdresser. A lot of the times, if I'm going to book something for myself, some self-care, it's going to have to be these hours. We can't always pick evening or weekends. Some businesses do, but what would you ideally like to set up? Next thing to look at is what is your ideal yoga class? And we're going to go off the schedule a little bit more and just to hash out what this looks like so that it does fit into the scheduling. So would you rather be teaching group classes or one-on-one classes? And if it's group, what size of a group? What does that look like? Or is there a combination of both? If money and time were not a factor in this question, how many yoga classes would you teach per week? So really dig into this. Many of you say to me, no, I need to teach 10 to 12 classes a week to pay all my bills. Okay, that's one way to look at it. Let's just try for a moment when we're looking at ideal yoga schedule. If money was not a factor, if time was not a factor, how many yoga classes would you teach per week? And then if money was not a factor, what would that look like? If time is a factor and you want to have time with family, with friends, with yourself, with another project, something else, ideally, not with the existing schedule that you have now, but just what would that look like in a week, an average work week? How often would you be right there in front of students? Some of you, it's going to be more than what you're teaching now. And for some of you, it's going to be less than what you're teaching right now. And maybe you're like, no, this is exactly where I want to be with my yoga teaching schedule. I want to get into one of my secret tools for this, and that is using an online scheduling software. Now, many of you know that I know and love and trust Schedulicity, and a big factor of this is that it's free. So you can set this up, and it could build and expand with you as you grow, but you can set it up today for free. So they have an app that is for your mobile device, but you can also set it up from your computer. In a matter of minutes, you can set it up so that you can see your schedule and you don't even have to be sharing it out yet. The reason why this is really important is many of you talk to me about how you want to increase booking with one-on-one yoga students. You want to have that time and you want to increase that. So I want to ask you today, when would that fit into your ideal week? What day of the week and what times would be available? And maybe you get into location as well. You know, is this in someone else's home, or do you have a studio space you can rent, or is there another location, or is this in your own home? This goes back to that making an appointment with yourself and not breaking it. So this is where that mentality comes in, and it's so powerful at this moment. If you have no people who book with you, so say you set up and just as an example, I'll use myself here. I like to book between 9 and 3 on Tuesdays for one-on-one appointments at a physiotherapy office where I work. They do all the booking for me there. So when we take this Tuesday 9 to 3 example, how many one-on-one yoga classes can fit in there? How much time do we need between appointments, and where is our lunch break or any other breaks that we might need? And that break should also include if we do follow-up with our one-on-one people, if we're sending them anything, have we allotted that time, or somewhere in our calendar have we included that time? And this switches us out of the mentality of lack of and into a limited time to book. So for example, if you thought, okay, my first appointment I'll take at 9 o'clock and that goes until 10. And then I like to have 15 minutes of a break if I'm working in an office that's already all set up, like there's a physiotherapy office. Now, if people are coming and going and there isn't an entrance place, I like to have more like a half an hour where someone can leave before the next person arrives. And the most important thing about this time when we set it aside and we make this appointment with ourselves and our business is that if we're not booking one-on-one sessions in that time, can we be doing the work to increase those bookings? And I really started to get my feet under myself with this through I used to do Thai yoga massage. And so I would spend one day doing Thai yoga massage. And at the beginning, I didn't have those bookings. So I was sitting there thinking, how can I increase those bookings? That was my work. So it might be sending an email back, replying, making a poster, letting yoga teachers know what I was doing, or letting my email list know what I was doing. So it's really finding a way to bring that work in, that one-on-one yoga teaching work, even if that's not what we are doing. And you can apply this to anything. If you, say, wanted to get a new job at a yoga studio and you have the ideal time all mapped out and it's not happened yet, use that time to brainstorm and do the work of getting those jobs at yoga studios. Or say you want to teach a workshop and it's on a weekend, use your Saturday morning that time that you want to be hosting the workshop. Use that time to map it out if that workshop doesn't run or you're not there yet, but set that time aside. For some of us, what really informs us is how much money do I need to make? So that's the flip side of things, and we could look at that. So you could say, well, I need this much money, and how many classes does that translate to? That's a different exercise. Before, right now, at this moment, we were doing what is our ideal schedule. But if the mind is starting to come into this place of money mindset, then follow it. So what is your hourly rate? And if you need more help on this, you can refer back to episode 11 with Tracy Eccleston. I really like how Tracy talked about looking at other service-based businesses in your area. So for example, massage, chiropractor, physiotherapy, osteopathy. What are these people charging per hour? And is your one-on-one rate similar to that? And is your group class earning a minimum of that, if not more? So that's setting our hourly rate where we are offering our services. And a lot of factors go into that, as you know, but that's the way if you're going to calculate it backwards. Okay, I need to earn this much money. Now, how much do I need to be teaching in that week? Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about today is time blocking. Some people call this block scheduling. Some people refer to it as daily focus or a theme day. For example, I love to time block on a weekly basis. And I feel like I really, with the podcast, I had to do this. It had to happen. I could tweak it a little bit more, but I feel like my week is really set and laid out. So let me tell you what it looks like. On Monday, it's content creation. And let me tell you, I had such a hard time to put this first thing in the week. So remember when I was saying my favorite time used to be to teach yoga Monday mornings? And that was because I feel like I was working. I have this real career. I'm a yoga teacher. Look at me. I'm working. And it was very difficult for me to think, oh, look at me. This is a real career. And now I'm going to put an email together or make a video or write an article. I felt like content creation was hitting the bottom of my list all of the time. Thanks to the podcast, I started to realize that content creation is really important. Obviously, that's why this podcast exists. You know, we're now a team of 4, and I can afford to pay the money that's generated from the podcast. I can afford to pay my team, and it's also paying because it's advertising my business. So what way can we develop a strong relationship to content creation? Because as entrepreneurs, this is super important. Okay, so say you are a yoga teacher and you want to teach restorative yoga, and that's your main focus, and you want to increase the number of students that you're seeing at restorative yoga. One idea is that you could share one restorative yoga pose. Maybe it's a video, maybe it's a photo and some text, and you could post that on your social media, also put it out in an email, and maybe, as I said, have a video. So that's I just want to go on to a little tangent there, on content creation and how it really is important, and I had to work through that own mindset. So we'll back things up again, go back to my weekly time blocking. Monday is now content creation, and it wasn't easy for me. Tuesday is all about yoga. So from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 p.m., I book one-on-one sessions, as I said, at the physiotherapy office. And then sometimes I have a group class, which is from 5:30 to 6:45. So that allows me, I have kind of a lunch break set out in the day. And then I also have time to grab a snack as well before or grab some dinner. It's usually more of a snack. I can't eat a full dinner, I feel like, before I teach. I usually come home and have a little bit more after that class. So Tuesday, I know my whole focus on Tuesday is teaching yoga. You know, I have a bag that I take with me that has some props and things that I need. I have my forms. Everything's ready to go on that day. Wednesday is all about podcast. So that's when I do the interviews, unless someone cannot book on a Wednesday. And that's when I put things together. That's on an ideal week. I have to tell you guys, today is Thursday. and Rob knows this better than anyone, I don't always get my episodes to him on Wednesday, but that's my goal. So I also am one episode ahead this week, so I'm feeling pretty good, and I feel like I can take an extra day. This one, I wanted to really put a lot together for you guys. Okay, I'm getting off track. Thursday for me is all about consultation calls. So this is when I work one-on-one with people, and I try and stick to Thursdays. Sometimes you guys tell me like you're in a totally different time zone, or you just don't have Thursdays available, and I look and I see if I can fit it in, but I really try to stick to Thursday. Things are clipping along really well, and I'm not worried about filling my Thursdays up right now, but if I was, then I need to look at, okay, how can I go back and message some of the people that I've worked with in the past? You know, I would still do the work of consultation calls on Thursdays if I wasn't seeing yoga teachers as I'd like to. Friday is all about catch-up day. I make sure that I have the podcast all set and ready to go out on Monday. There's a few things that I have to do first thing Monday morning with the podcast, but I like to have it all ready on Friday to go out for Monday. And just looking at this time blocking, I know that there are some things that are missing, that I need to look at time blocking my day and my month as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that also. One thing that this really helps with is decision fatigue. So I have so many kind of plates spinning. You know, if I was like, oh, I am a podcaster and I do consultation calls and I teach yoga, on Monday morning, I wouldn't know where to start if I had all of those things in my mind. So when I can really time block and say, this day is all about this, if I'm getting off task, say if I'm doing something else that day, I can really rein it in and bring myself back to, okay, what is the focus of the day? Okay, let's get back to that. So that decision fatigue, it kind of takes it out. What I would like to implement next is a way at the end of my day to wrap things up and to plan out my next day. I'm not there yet, you guys, but here's my goal. My goal is to spend 15 minutes at the end of my day. So ideally, this is like at 2:45, right? To put my to-do items on my calendar that came up during the day. So I might have talked to a yoga teacher and then thought, oh, I should send that to you. Oh, and I've written down a little note in my book, in my consultation call book. But sometimes those go off the list pretty fast. You know, I don't always send those out. So if I put those things on my calendar and kind of batch them together. Okay, this will be the time when I get back to all of my consultation calls and send out those links. So this time to review my day and put items on my calendar that really came up. Say if the dentist called and I jotted down, you know, dental appointment next week. Put that on my calendar. Or I need to allot some time to do this extra thing for my business. Another part that I'd like to add into this is just how my mind works. I want to add in a mind dump. So I do this already kind of, but I think I'm going to try and change it a bit. I tend to get into these spaces where there's just like a tornado of thoughts and to-dos and things on my mind, and I like to write them all down. Usually I'm writing these down in a to-do list form, but I'm going to try and see if daily I can mind map it out or mind dump it out, just write down a bunch of things. And then to look at that list and say, I know I'd like to reorganize my closet. That's on that mind dump, but that's not really going to fit in with my work day tomorrow. That's more of a, spring cleaning. Maybe I even take half a day off to do that, but I don't want it getting caught in with, I need to answer my emails and get back to my clients who are paying me. Cleaning out my closet might work in different ways to help my business, but I don't want it to be thrown in with everything else I need to do. Does that make sense? So then the last part of that kind of review, then mind dump, is that I want to plan for my next work day and maybe even further ahead. Maybe I start to look at the week, but I really enjoy that planning time, and I want to see if I can just really crop it down so it's the last 15 minutes of the day so that I know the next day, okay, what am I doing? Oh yeah, I'm doing those things. And maybe there are some things that I can get ready early, like put something near the door and just be organized. Also, I think this is a great time for me to work on prioritizing. So I don't know if any of you feel like that, but I can't always see what comes first on the list. Like answer my emails. Oh, right, I didn't get this other thing done today. Check Facebook isn't really high priority over something else. Speaking of Facebook, here's another thing that you can try and do. And I've done this at different points in my life. It pushes a lot of buttons. I think that's good when we can dig in. So list out the things that you are spending your time doing. So you can list out the things that you need to do for your business. What are the things that you really enjoy doing? What are the things that you hold off on doing or you procrastinate on? For me, it's entering receipts into my accounting software. And so I did outsource this. I hired a bookkeeper to do it. And I worked away at simplifying things a little bit more. I don't enjoy doing that. And so I hired it out. Okay, so when we list out the things that we're spending our time at, we might notice, oh, wow, I got sucked into scrolling through Instagram for the last 45 minutes. And we might feel slightly guilty writing that down, but let's just track and see where we're spending our time. Time blocking is brand new to you. Let's give it a try. So look at something that you need to do today and try blocking off the time to do it first. So it might be 60 or 90 minutes of time. And it's so great when we give it some boundaries. So say you're planning out a workshop and you're super excited about it and you're going to get your cards, your oracle cards together and some crystals. And then you want to bring in this really cool yoga pose and you have the theme already. And if you're like me, I could spend endless hours doing this kind of planning. But really, let's rein it in. And what can we come up with in 60 or 90 minutes to put that workshop together? And maybe we need another time block. Like maybe we plan it out that we're going to do that once a day or once a week for a certain amount of time, but block it out and put some boundaries around it. Here are some of the things that yoga teachers are doing in their daily time blocking. And I help yoga teachers with this. I work on it myself as well. So first thing is personal yoga practice. And I don't just mean your asana practice. I mean an 8-limb focused, where can you carve out time daily for form of yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga. So I want to be clear on that it's not just asana, but where can you carve out this time for yourself, where it's not about planning your class and it's not about learning new things. It's about connecting with self and connecting with a source outside of yourself that's bigger than yourself. Name that whatever you would like. Number 2 is marketing. So if that word bothers you, let's switch it to be telling people what you do or talking to people or building relationships. So this is the email, the social media, maybe public speaking, putting an ad in the newspaper, advertisements, posters, business cards, creating a video. All of that is marketing in some way. Number 3 is actually sharing the yoga. So that's through our workshops, our classes, our one-on-one sessions, retreats, online videos, blog posts, and include your travel and your setup time in this, please. Remember to include that in, especially when you time block it on your calendar. Number 4 is the time to learn. So this might be teacher training, reading, study, videos, courses. I just want to add a little note to this one that small, regular drips of information generally works better than this huge flood of information. So it is amazing when we carve out the time and we can sign up for a yoga teacher training. But if you're feeling like your calendar is already packed full and you can't fit anything else in, let's take a step back and see, can we take in a small drip of information, integrate that, really feel what that's like in your own business and your own yoga practice, whatever this information is. Like say you want to learn chair yoga, then you purchase a book on chair yoga or you look up a pose and you really try it out. So you try it out in your own body, you see what it's like. Maybe you try teaching it in a class then once you've integrated it. And that's an amazing form of learning. And it's just this tiny drip. We break it up. So that's number 4 is learning. Number 5 is planning and preparation of yoga offerings. Now, this is something that I get super excited about lately, and I don't even know if I've talked about it on the podcast. I've definitely talked to some of you in one-on-one sessions about it. I took my 11-week session, my group yoga class, and I mapped it out all of the topics that I wanted to include and 3 main yoga poses for that. So when I walk out the door on Tuesdays, I have my booklet. All of the students have one too. They love that printout, and I know what I'm covering. I've already planned it all out. I took some time. I took a day or two to really map out the material in that 11-week course that I love to share that. So it's 11-week session basically of classes. What it did is it really released me from that last minute, oh my gosh, I teach in a half an hour and what am I teaching? Now that said, I like to get into the space, jot down a few notes because I feel like I have a fresh idea on the day of the class. I like to kind of flow with the day and also flow with the people who are showing up. So say if someone comes to me and they say, oh my gosh, my shoulder is so sore today, I'll jot that down on my paper right there. Or if someone has a question about a pose that we did the week before, I'll just jot that down that we're going to clarify that. And some of these things I can get to and some of them I can't with my class plan. And I'm also ready to throw the whole class plan out the window. Sometimes it doesn't work. As you guys know, when you're modifying for the people who are showing up, you can't always plan and prepare and then follow that. But I like to have a plan and I like to be prepared. You might have a different teaching style and you might be like, I can take that one off the list. I don't need to put planning and preparation on my calendar. But I think what is really key is if you do need that time for planning and preparation, try putting a block of time on it. So it's, maximum 60 to 90 minutes. You might even say, you know what, I don't have that time right now. I need to cut it down and carve it down to be 30 minutes. And then the very last one here is other. And you can add in there what you'd like. I think this is email, kind of catching up from the week. What are the other things that are unique to your yoga business? Where are you fitting in your financial? For you, that might be one whole piece. You really like to have that marked out every week, or it might be part of this other. So time block those things as well. Let's move on now into really taking a good look at yourself and how you work best and show up in the world. So a little bit of self-study, SVADHYAYA. Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Are you a combination of both? So ask yourself right now, do you gain energy from quiet, alone time? Or do you gain energy when you're working with people? I know when I finish a consultation call, I'm super jazzed and excited. So what are your natural daily energy levels? So for myself, if I try to do work in the afternoon, sometimes that's a bit of a struggle for me. It's harder. Creating content by myself is harder for me in the afternoon for sure. It's easier for me in the morning because I'm more focused. I'm more driven to dig in. If I work one-on-one with people, I can put that in the afternoon and gain energy. Like I said, I feel jazzed and ready to go. So booking consultation calls might be something worth looking at for myself to book them more in the afternoon. The only thing is that I know that if I do a consultation call or a podcast interview and then I'm recording, say, the intro, outro, or this type of thing, a full solo episode, I have so many more insights if I've just finished up a consultation call or podcast interview. I feel like I can pull that in and I have more energy because I've just met with someone. A lot of the times I've met with a yoga teacher and then I feel like, ooh, I could bring that in and it really fits in well with today's topic. So do that self-study, do that SVADHYAYA, figure out what really works for your own business. What is your start of day style? So I hear 2 start of day styles. One is that people kind of need a little more time to warm up into their work. So these type of people, it helps them a lot if they can tackle some really quick to-do items so that you feel like you're being productive, getting ahead, and kind of winning at the start of your day. I would say set a time limit for this. So this is just from experience. I like to sometimes have that warm-up time, and maybe I'm like, okay, I'm going to get through a whole bunch of emails and answer them all. And 2 hours later, I'm caught in watching some video that doesn't even relate to answering emails, but I wound into it. So I would just say set the time limit, time block for sure. The other side of things is the eat your frog first. If you're like, what did she just say? Yeah, I said eat your frog first. It's a book. It's written by Brian Tracy, and it's based on this idea that if the frog is this one task that can have the greatest positive impact on your life or your business and the results in this moment. So you pick that one task, or what is the worst thing? What's that frog? What's the thing that we're really procrastinating? We're not getting it done, but we need to get it done. Another way to look at this is if you could only do one thing today before leaving for a work trip or vacation, what would you be doing? Like, what is really top of the list? To me, today, this podcast is really kind of that. I've left it to the last minute. I have to get my laundry done, get packed, and get ready to head to a teacher training tomorrow. And this is my frog, even though I love doing it. It's the one thing that has to get done, that and packing. A similar book is The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. So you can ask yourself, what's the one thing that you can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? I've read The One Thing. I got frustrated with The One Thing. It's a great book for me to read, and it's challenging because I really need to focus in on one thing at a time, and that can be a challenge for me. Another thing to think about is to set a daily goal. And I have to give a shout out of thanks to Natalie Ekdahl of Biz Chicks, because she was the one that said to me, Shannon, you can only get one thing done a day, maybe 2 or 3 things. And I was thinking, what? But she's right. If you're feeling super overwhelmed, choose just one thing a day to focus in on and to set a goal. Like, I just need to get this one thing done. Maybe add in 2 or 3 if you have space for more, not 10 or 20. I have these massive to-do lists and they don't work. Pick one thing on that list. Like, what's the one thing I'm going to do today? If this is very hard for you, find an accountability partner and just text them. The one thing I'm going to do today is this. Find someone who also struggles with this, probably an entrepreneur. They do not have to be in the same business as you. If you also want to post in the Connected Yoga Teacher group, you can. Hold me accountable, friends. The one thing I'm going to do today is this. And then we can check in with you at the end of the day. Make these daily goals achievable, measurable, and specific. I don't always do this, you guys, but here is an example of the difference that it can make. Here is one time that I really did this. I had a goal back in February and March to revise the Mama Nurture Prenatal Yoga Manual. I knew I wanted to do a big revision, add some things, take some things out, edit. I put 6 dates on my calendar. I thought I was doing really well. Like, this is Edit Mama Nurture Manual Day, and for this time. The first 2 went by, and I didn't even do it. I just missed it. I was checking my email or something. I don't know what I was doing. It was an appointment with myself and I didn't keep it. I was procrastinating big time on this one. So as it got closer to crunch time, I really needed to clarify. So I took the manual, divided it into 4 parts, literally wrote down the pages that needed to be edited and by when. What I didn't do is mark in my calendar with specific times. So that left me scrambling to finish. Like, by the end of the day, I remember there were a couple of nights where I was doing this when everyone went to bed. My self-care involves rest, which is my unwind and sleep time at the end of the day. And this is super important to me. It's also important to the people that I live with. I am a much nicer person if I get enough sleep. I used to stay up late, especially when my kids were toddlers, because I was trying to get things done that I wanted to create or do with a quiet house. So I get it. If you have little kids, I really feel for you. I know that quiet moment where everyone's in bed is sometimes the best create time, the best doing time, or just being and having a tea. But let's just take a moment together and choose one goal for today. So it might be the frog that you know you have to do, but you've been procrastinating on. What's the one thing that you could do today to generate more profit for your yoga business? That's a great question to ask yourself at the beginning of the day or at the end of the previous day. What's the one thing I can do tomorrow to generate more profit for my yoga business? So you know when you're ready, that's where I'm starting. There's my frog. Hold that goal in your mind for a moment. Maybe it's to plan out a workshop, class, or retreat. Maybe it's to reach out to your email list and tell them about an offering that you've already put together. Choose just one goal and write it down. Now look at how much time do you need to complete this? If it's longer than you have in one day, if it's more than that 60 to 90 minutes, let's see if we can break it up so that it's more of a micro goal. What part of that goal can you break up in 60 or 90 minutes? What time are you going to start and what time are you going to end? And what is really specific about this task? So if I said, I want to get more students to attend my workshop, how can I clarify that and make it measurable? So if I then got really specific, I could add into my calendar, send a personal note via Facebook Messenger to the 23 people who said that they are interested in attending my 8 Limbs workshop, which I put on Facebook. And I can add in the time from 10 to 11 today. So that's a really specific example that we don't just say, get more people to my workshop. We set when we're going to do that, how we're going to do that, and which workshop it is. So we get really clear on that. The next part I want to talk about in this, and I already touched on it, is outsourcing. So if you are really procrastinating on something, can you outsource it? For example, I don't like washing windows. I'm afraid of heights, and I can pay someone less than I make in an hour to wash my windows. Some other ideas, maybe it's outsourcing things in your business, like creating graphics, the bookkeeping end, booking appointments, answering emails, or maybe it's in your home, cooking and meal planning, cutting the grass, gardening, cleaning your house, all kinds of things we can outsource. And we're really helping the community when we can do this. We're putting ourselves in the place where we can hire this out. So for example, Rob does our audio, Laura does the show notes, Samantha does VA tasks. She's doing all kinds of things in the back end of the Connected Yoga Teacher business. If you feel like you're not giving yourself permission to outsource or you need some cheerleading in this, I am going to link in the show notes to an episode by Natalie Ekdahl of BizChicks, and she really digs into outsourcing. She also has a huge list that you can sign up for from that episode, and if there's any mindset stuff going on around outsourcing, that's where to go. Another thing I want to touch on is seasons. So yesterday I got out into my vegetable garden. It was wonderful, you guys. I planted some peas and some spinach because they're not affected by frost. A month ago, though, the gardens were under a blanket of snow. And so what if we start looking at our yoga business as having seasons where sometimes we can be digging in the dirt and sometimes we can be skiing? So for example, when I was getting ready to launch this podcast, it was my main focus. It was the season. The season was podcast season. So what is your season right now? Everything else sort of dropped off my list for a while. Mama Nurture took a back burner. Even my consultation calls did for a little bit until I got up and running. If you are launching an online course, maybe that's the season you're in. For some of you, it's your niche. So I remember getting really excited this week talking to a fellow yoga teacher who it sounded like to me her niche was helping people with balance and strong bones. So yoga for balance and strong bones. And I got all excited, and I know how scary it is to niche down. But if we look at it as a season, then it's like, okay, for the next 4 months or even for the next 1 month, that's going to be my season. That's my main focus. We've been looking at really like daily, weekly, monthly. Let's take a big picture plan look now. So I talked earlier about my 4 areas of importance, and I need to give a huge shout out to Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income for this inspiration. He calls this the airport test, in that if you went to the airport in 5 years from today and you met up with a friend and they said, "How are you?" And then you say, "My life is amazing because..." And then you start listing off all of the things. Obviously, we don't do this in conversation, but for this exercise, we would divide a piece of paper into 4 quadrants, and we would put those 4 areas of importance. So again, I said for me, the first one is health and wellness. Not that they're in any particular order. The second one is relationships with my partner, my children, my friends, my family, my community. The third one is my business, my life purpose. The fourth one is my finances. That one was hard for me to get in that quadrant, to have its own quadrant, but really you'll see how it really informs the other ones. So for example, if I met a friend in an airport from 5 years today and it's health and wellness, I would say my life is amazing because I feel better than I ever have. I feel like I have tons of energy. I have lots of energy to travel and to spend time with my children and to do the things I really want to do. So you see how you start to really think big, and it's a big plan for 5 years from today. Where do I want to be? For those of you who have taken the Define Your Yoga Niche course, we go into this in more detail. And I also do this sometimes when I see it's really coming up for someone. We dig into it a little bit more in a one-on-one consultation call. I want to say, and just give you permission here for a moment, not to be too hard on yourself. So productivity, easy. And it's especially not easy in today's world. Things are moving very fast. So some ways to set yourself up for success are to cut out distractions. If you do only one thing today, shut every notification off for your phone and your computer so that it's not popping up saying that someone's doing something on Facebook, there's a new YouTube video, you have a new email. No dings, no notifications, even the things that pop up from your calendar, unless you really need them. Another one is to time block for the distracting times. So for example, Facebook is a big distractor in my world, but I also love it. And I love to be in our Facebook group and engaged. So if I set a timer and I engage on a regular basis, I know if I think, okay, at 3:00, I'm going to go jump into the group and I'll be there for 30 minutes. That's lots of time for me to engage in there. And then I'm not thinking at 10:00, oh, well, I really want to jump back and check the group, or when I'm actually procrastinating because I'm struggling to create some content. One thing that I use, and I could use it more, is the Freedom app. So it will block anything I ask it to. It'll block all of my social sites. It'll block my email. It'll block YouTube. And I can set the amount of time. So I plan on using that a little bit more this week. With this, I have to say that email is the same way. I don't know if you find this, but I definitely find that email is a huge distractor. So block that out. When are you going to answer those emails? Carve out the time. Also, be prepared. So what do you need to do that thing that you're going to do for the blocked out time? A great example of this is if you're going to prepare content and it's a yoga video, do you have the room set up? Do you have all the props ready to go? What do you need? And you can see how time blocking, if you say, okay, on Monday, I'm going to create four videos, and then I'll put those videos out throughout the next month. Do you see how the time blocking really helps us to save time? We're not having to do that every single week. A couple other notes. If you feel like, okay, I love this information and I want to dig in a little bit more, especially around the ideal week, ideal month, Natalie Ekdahl has a podcast episode. It's episode 288. I'll link to it in the show notes. That's all about creating your ideal week and ideal month. And in that, she shares some actual daily schedules of different people. I love this, to look at like, what is that person doing in their ideal week? So you can sign up for that from that podcast link. Also, I'm very excited to listen to a new episode that was just released today. So I haven't listened to it yet, but I think it's going to fit in very nicely. It's how to summer-proof your business. So we were talking about seasons today, and that's definitely something, I think about with my kids, and then just wanting to be outside in the garden more. So that's episode 316, and that's also the Biz Chicks podcast with Natalie Ekdahl. And I will also link to that in the show notes. One other link I want to add is the Define Your Yoga Niche. So we did that as a live course. It is going to run again. It will look different, but if you're feeling like, you know what, I need that today, I want to get more into my big picture and my niche, I will put a link to that course and you can get all of the replay videos for that course. That was a lot of information, Connected Yoga Teachers. I would love to hear from you. It would be great if you could leave us a review if you enjoyed this episode or any of the episodes. You can go to the show notes page and there's a button there. Also, if you feel led to leave a voicemail, tell me about how this podcast has helped or what you use as a scheduling tool or tip. And there's a button on the connectedyogateacher.com website. Just over on the right-hand side, you'll see Leave Shannon a voicemail. Let's continue this discussion, Connected Yoga Teachers, in the Facebook group or in the comments of the show notes. It'd be great to hear from you. Stay connected to self, to your practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up.